A humongous wyvern flew in circles high in the sky. It flapped its majestic wings and soared through the barren lands, freer than anything. That very sight was the reason why Asta, from the great magical house Declan, decided to resign as a troubleshooter. The air fills with the screeching cries of crows as Asta tightens his grip on the man. The man looks down at him, saying that he was hiding his true skills all this time because his power is not something a mere troubleshooter should have. Asta scoffs and reveals a magical tome in his possession. The man recognizes the magic tome, as it's the reason why they were deployed in the field and not just to kill one hunting dog like him. Asta agrees since the magical instrument in his hands should be important for the house Declan to show up. He then asks how to use it, but the man claims that he doesn't know how. This makes Asta think that the book must be worth that much for them to chase him this far. The man tells him to hand over the book and offers to plead to the head to show mercy and let him return to being a troubleshooter. However, Asta refuses, claiming that the troubleshooter manager can't save him now. He smirks at the man and asks if he has any last words before he kills him. The man tries to free himself, but he is completely under Asta's mercy. Suddenly, a dangerous presence appears, shaking Asta to his core. The newly arrived man with the vicious aura introduces himself as Farron von Declan, the head of the magical house Declan from the eastern continent. With his powerful aura, he looks at Asta and tells him to surrender the tome to him. Asta has been a troubleshooter for over a decade and spent half of his life with the Declan, but this is the first time he sees the head of the clan in person. The house Declan is the top magical family of the eastern continent, and its head is said to be the strongest mage in its history. Now seeing him in the flesh, it feels really true. Indifferent, Asta dismisses his request, refusing to give him his hard-earned loot, calling the head shameless. Farron laughs at his bold statement, while the troubleshooter regrets having eaten the wyvern back then and now shakes at the aura of the clan head. He is the most overwhelming mage he has ever seen. The head claims that it would be easier to kill him and take the tome, but he then offers Asta to come back to the Declan wing. If he turns over the tome, he will accept the troubleshooter again and forget everything that he has done. The head acknowledges that his talent is truly remarkable and couldn't believe that he didn't recognize it sooner. The troubleshooter was just a filthy stray from the gray zone, mastering trash techniques that only troubleshooters use, and with him as a member of Declan, he could soar high. With this, the Declan could also benefit from using him as their blade. Farron suggests that they fight side by side and make their clan even greater, promising Asta that he'll go down in history too, but with one condition: he needs to return the tome. Asta agrees, making the head satisfied with his answer. However, the troubleshooter has one condition as well: give him the head seat, and he will think about joining the clan again. His response makes the head visibly displeased. Asta confidently shows him his power and puts an end to the man in front of him, challenging him to a fight since he is not willing to easily give up the magical tome. Farron warns him that he might die if he challenges him, which he completely acknowledges. Despite this, he charges toward the head and clashes with him. They exchange attacks, but it's clear that Farron is a more experienced mage than Asta. The troubleshooter is obviously at a disadvantage and lost in thought at how powerful his opponent is. Farron uses his distraction as leverage and attacks his enemy. He underestimates his opponent, telling him that they are just on different levels and that it's something they can't measure since the gap between them is just too big. The head then casts a big magic circle and hurls it toward the troubleshooter, roughing him up a bit. At an obvious disadvantage, Asta asks if he can rescind his decision and bow down to the head. Farron scoffs, not believing him. In that moment, Asta casts his most powerful spell and hurls it in the head's direction, saying that he is done following the clan's orders and being their lackey. He is done being their dog and tired of living inside his kennel, even though it's shiny and big. Farron calls him pathetic and taps his cane on the ground, producing another huge magic circle. He then shows the young man his overwhelming power that everyone revered. As he is reeling from his injuries, Asta remembers the wyvern he saw that day flying freely in the sky. Farron walks up to him, acknowledging that him holding out in their fight was impressive, and that it must have taught him the obvious difference in their power. Asta admits that the head is insanely strong. The head then asks if he wants to continue their conversation. Asta scoffs this time, telling him that he doesn't want to be a troubleshooter again. However, the head clarifies that he wasn't asking him to be a troubleshooter but to be the head of the Bongshin family. This shocks the young man, as the Declan house is powerful enough to challenge the throne, and yet they want him to serve them as one of the heads of their vassal families. Farron tells him that he is underestimating his worth, and that he wants Asta and the tome. As an answer, Asta brings out the tome and hands it over to the clan head. Farron is delighted, saying that he has made the right choice and that settles all of his crimes. However, to the man's surprise, Asta burns the tome before he could even get it, rendering it useless. He tells the head that he was never at their mercy for money, as being a troubleshooter doesn't really pay. He then asks if the head has heard of the troubleshooter eaten by the Declan's young master, revealing that his teammates were eaten by the Declan and they covered it up. It was all for revenge. Asta denies this, saying that he is aware that the lives of troubleshooters are short and cheap, but he just wanted to make sure that they got what they wanted. However, that takes a lot of money, and besides, he finally made up his mind to retire, and he is not going to crawl back into the kennel. With that, Farron snaps his fingers and envelops him in a scorching blue flame. The flame is the Declan's most prized blue flame, and it never dies out. He will burn in the slowest and most excruciating way that will make him regret his choice with every fiber of his being. Asta refuses to regret his decision and resists going back as Declan's dog, saying he would much rather go back to the gray zone. He would rather choose to die and feels freer than before as the blue flames engulf his whole being. It is a shame that he won't survive, but he has no regrets. So, if he is ever born again, he will find freedom and get revenge properly for the people he cherished. Suddenly, to his utter shock, everything stopped. He then looks at the burning tome in his hand, which is confined in an overwhelming magical aura. He then suddenly bears a magical symbol on his chest, making him wonder what's happening. Asta is shocked that he is no longer burning to death, and feels that something is off. He then looks around and notices that he is in a familiar place. He has gone back to the past, and that he is in the gray zone again. This is the place where he begged through each day before becoming a troubleshooter. Alarmed, he can't believe that he has gone back in time. In a small river inside the gray zone, Asta looks at his reflection and sees that he has turned into his younger self. He then realizes that the mark he acquired from the tome is still embedded in him. He is sure that the magic tome is the one that brought him back to the past, and the fact that the head of the Declan family personally went to get the book just shows how important the artifact is. He shakes off his thoughts and focuses on the one good thing: he's back in the past. To convince himself that this isn't just a dream, he takes a deep breath and catches the familiar stench of sewage from Seal's lecture halls. It's unmistakably real. Clenching his fist, he raises it with renewed determination, declaring that this is his chance to succeed at anything. He recalls the dream he once shared with his comrades, a promise they all made together. He remembers a conversation with one of his comrades, that as vagrants born in the gray zone, they couldn't get access to basic needs like dressing well, eating well, and getting an education. If it was just hunger, they wouldn't have ended up as rats in the sewer. Nonchalant, Asta tells him that he is fine with it, making his comrade visibly annoyed and giving him a side eye. The comrade continues that not being educated was the most bitter part of their lives. If they had studied, they wouldn't be living like slaves to the bastards. So if ever he retires, then he wants to build a library, a place where anyone, regardless of money, status, or gender, can freely read books. But Asta wants to take it one step further, and so he imagines building a tall library where he can put any kind of book in, but tells himself that one book must be in the Declan's secret manual right at the front entrance on the first floor, with a crazy look on his face. In this way, even the vagrants from the gray zone, illegitimate noble children, or butchers' sons could carry a copy. The cover will bear the Declan crest, and inside will be the secret techniques they treasure more than life. Just imagining that the Declans will face downfall because of it makes his mouth water. However, the problem is how he will get his hands on the manual, but he realizes that his future self will be the one responsible for it. As he strategizes how he will spread the Declan's manual, a hard kick suddenly flies to his face, sending him to the ground with a loud thud. The young man named Spotty declares that he has been looking for him, that he was keeping his seat, and that all along he was hiding there. Asta tries to remember who the young man attacking him is. Annoyed, he grabs his foot and blocks his attack, much to Spotty's surprise. Asta gives him a deadly glare after receiving 7 kicks and vows to give him 70 kicks in return. He tries to give the boy a jab but stops midway when he notices that his knuckle is glowing. Because of this, Spotty uses the opportunity to hit him instead and repeatedly attacks him once he is down again. It hurts like hell, but for Asta, it hurts his pride more that a young man is beating the lights out of him. The man then suddenly steps on a rock and loses his footing, causing him to fall into the river. Asta uses this opportunity to run away and vows to remember the face of Spotty and the hits he landed, promising to wear them on his chest like a medal. In a back alley, he feels pathetic as a veteran troubleshooter like him was defeated by a goon. He looks at his injured hand, which was sprained while punching a while ago, recognizing that his body's too weak. He decides to fix his body first before he builds the tower. Just then, a boy appears next to him and asks if he is hungry. He observes the boy, who looks like a mess but is wearing expensive clothes, thinking that he is probably a noble's kid who fell from grace in a power struggle. The boy introduces himself as Damien and shares that his mother's name is Bianca. Asta is annoyed, asking if the boy is not right in the head. Damien then admits that he doesn't have a mother anymore, making Asta confess that he doesn't have a dad, so he wins, and they must go their separate ways. He contemplates that it is best not to get involved with a bomb like that and ditch him before things get messier. He then tries to ignore the boy, but he doesn't leave his side and offers to go with him. This exasperates him even more, but then Damien sees his injury and offers to heal it for him. Just then, the boy's hand glows and starts to heal his injured hand, saying that he just showed him magic touch. However, Asta doesn't believe him and knows that what he did is called light healing, a secret technique of the Blandor family, which fell from grace because of the Declan family. His troubleshooter instinct tells him that he has now gotten involved in something dirty and dangerous. He wonders why a Blandor child is in the gray zone since the Blandor family should still be strong in that era. Damien lights up when he hears Asta call his name, who now remembers the member of the Blandor family with odd eyes. Damien must be the monster of Blandor, the mad butcher who won't die even if you kill him. Damien von Blandor. Now, he just looks like an innocent, naive child, happily looking at the ants. Asta remembers the time when he was still a troubleshooter. He and his comrades went to the Blandor family estate on the orders of the Declan family. They were hesitant at first because it was an influential family, but couldn't turn down the orders of the higher-ups. What they knew was that there was a monster in the estate, and supposedly dozens had died. He wondered if his comrades were talking about ogres, but then he saw what they meant with his very eyes. It was not an ogre but a more terrifying kind of beast. A person tearing another person apart and casting his unique healing magic endlessly while laughing as he fought in pure madness. The man would be known as the Butcher of the Blandor family, someone who could not be killed even if everyone attempted to. However, right now, he is just a naive kid in Asta's eyes, who wonders why a direct descendant of the Blandor family and the only son of the head would be in such a dangerous place. After admiring the ants, Damien announces that he is hungry and wants to eat, adding that his mother told him that if he wants to stay healthy, he has to eat well, or he will get sick if he doesn't. Asta stands up and agrees that they need to eat, asking the boy if he has money. Damien then shows him a bag of gold coins. Asta puts his arm around the boy's shoulders, declaring that they are now friends, saying that they should share what they have, obviously having an ulterior motive now that he knows Damien has money. Meanwhile, the boy is excited to have a friend now. Later, Asta burps after eating a good meal, courtesy of his new friend. He feels refreshed too after washing up. Meanwhile, Damien looks around their room, not knowing that there was a house above the place where they ate, since he has always slept outside. He then reiterates that he doesn't have a dad either, as if treating their lack of parents like a competition. Damien continues to act naive, annoying him. In the end, he chooses to assess the situation more and asks the boy how long he has been in the gray zone alone. Damien answers that he ran away from home and that he has slept on the street for 10 times now. Asta contemplates this and deduces that Damien has been in the gray zone for 10 days now and wonders if the boy is being chased. The boy admits that he naps a lot too, and in fact, does it twice a day. With this, Asta thinks that he might have been in the gray zone for only 3 to 4 days now. He realizes that this kid is really far from the madman in the future and plans to act as his nanny and form a connection with the Blandor family in that way. In this way, he will have leverage against the Declan family and can be their ally, since prestigious families have a lot of books that he can use. However, he decides to take care of something first and remembers the boy who gave him 57 kicks and punches, which are still etched in his chest. He then tells Damien that he will lie down for a bit so the boy must not bother him, and warns that if he does, there will be a big problem. He then sleeps and practices breathing and tells Damien that after he does it, he should do it too. He closes his eyes and adjusts his breathing. In his past life, he laid foundation in magic through the standard issue spells given to the troubleshooters, but the limits were clear. That is why he snuck into various noble houses and stole spells, and that made him nearly died many times. But that's all worth it since he was able to learn the hardened body technique used by the knights, the spirit magic summoning, alchemy, and bunch of random arts. However, right before he died, he encountered the head of the Declan family who was truly an epitome of real power. In that moment, he swears that he needs to practice Declan's foundational art, Heavenly Origin Technique, which is a root art of all Declan spells that able to accommodate all attributes of mana. He memorized the art once for research and now he get to use it. He then lets go and uses the breathing technique he learned, activating the mana in his body. He instantly feels hot as if the lava is flowing through his body. Although in excruciating pain, he tells himself to focus and control the surge of the power within him. Suddenly, he feels impurities slowly creep on him and wonders why they are there. He then remembers a high-level spell only used by the elite mages in noble families, one that is used only on direct bloodlines, which forces mana to burn away the impurities in the circuits. He then casts the spell Mana Shower, eradicating all the impurities in his body. He jolts awake, drenched in sweat after casting the spell. Catching his breath, he wonders how much time has passed and sees that Damien is sleeping peacefully beside him. Still reeling from his breathing exercise, he realizes that no impurities left in his circuit anymore, and that his mana has been purified, which gave him purity even greater than in his past life. Still, defeating the Declan family seems too far-fetched, and that even he were to be born 100 times it might be impossible for him. However, one thing's for sure, his chances of winning has just increased, and he will keep working on his odds to beat them. The next morning, Damien is pumped up after they colored his hair brown to cover his noticeable platinum hair and avoid prying eyes. They also changed his clothes so that they wouldn't caught by the Blandor family. Sensing that he still has other plans, Damien asks what his friend still wants to do. Asta smiles at him, saying that they are going to cause some chaos. Meanwhile, the young man who assaulted Asta earlier stretches after waking up from a good nap. He then looks surprised seeing Asta and Damien before him. He tries to intimidate the boy, asking where he had run off to and insulted how he looks. He scrutinizes Damien and comments that the boy looks kind of rich. As he close off their distance, Asta swings his fist and connected with it a lot of force into Spotty's stomach, knocking him out cold in an instant. He then declares that he will give the boy 123 hits for all the hits received earlier. The boy's friends hear the commotion and immediately come to his rescue. However, this excites Asta even more and braces for the fight with his newfound friend. Asta throws punches left and right, teaching the goons a painful lesson. He actually enjoys the fight, channeling mana through his fists as he strikes fast and hard, each blow landing with sharp precision that leaves Damien in awe. When Damien blurts out how amazing he is, Asta smirks and corrects him, saying that he is not awesome but amazing. Damien heals the beaten thugs, prompting Asta to punch them again in quick succession. By the time the sun sets, all the goons are down on the ground, groaning in defeat, all except Spotty, their last standing member. After finishing him off, Asta asks how many times he's been beaten. Spotty, dizzy and dazed, says he's lost count. Grinning, Asta calls Damien over, who eagerly heals the poor man once more. The two friends stare down at him with wild excitement in their eyes. Terrified, Spotty screams for them to stop, calling them devils, saying he can only count up to 2 digits. Night falls, and the battered goons line up, thanking Asta and Damien for the lesson they've just received. Asta grins proudly, satisfied with his handiwork after all. Landing over 100 punches per person, for a total of more than 1,000, is quite an achievement even for a seasoned troubleshooter like him. Spotty, still aching all over, timidly asks if they can leave now since they're exhausted from the long day. Asta waves him off with permission, but the boy nervously explains that this space is actually their home, so it's kind of hard for them to leave. Asta's cheerful smile drops into a deadly glare, clearly refusing to move an inch. Panicking, the group quickly decides to get lost anyway, shuffling away in defeat. As he watches the goons disappear into the distance, Asta suddenly senses another presence, approaching fast, sharp, and distinct. It's the kind of aura only a seasoned troubleshooter would have, and judging by its direction, it's probably after him. Staying alert, he wonders how they managed to track him down. He can't believe it, the Blandor family has finally found him. Feeling the mana surging closer, Asta quickly analyzes the situation. A single spell won't be enough to stop this one, and even hand-to-hand combat would be risky. Judging by the strength of the approaching energy, he realizes this battle won't be easy. Even when he was still a troubleshooter, Asta never possessed an abundance of magical power, not even once. He had always lived facing unfamiliar situations like this, where the odds were against him. Gathering all the mana around him, he begins to compress it tightly, channeling every ounce of energy into his body. The air trembles with power as he prepares for the looming fight. This, he tells himself, might be his only chance to strike effectively. He focuses his magic on his fingertip and fires the condensed mana, but to his surprise, the man before him suddenly drops to his knees and bursts into tears. Damien, startled, recognizes him instantly as Alfredo, his family's head butler. Sobbing uncontrollably, Alfredo confesses that they've been searching everywhere for him, unable to eat or sleep out of sheer worry. Clutching Damien tightly, he swears never to let go again until he brings him back home, even offering his life for his young master's safety. Realizing how emotional he's become in front of Asta, he quickly regains composure and introduces himself properly as Alfredo of the Blandor family. He notices how fond Damien seems of Asta, and with a polite smile, invites him to return with them to the Blandor estate. Asta, however, remains cautious. He knows too well that the Blandor family despises anything dirty or common people like him. Still, he can't ignore the opportunity. After all, he had planned to form a connection with the Blandors eventually, and now, that chance has arrived sooner than expected. With this, his gateway to the city is ensured. He will have access to Zenian Academy, which is the best in the East, and to their library, which is also said to be the most prestigious library in the East. Since he is going to build the best library, it won't be a bad idea to take a look at it too. As everything is going according to his plan, he accepts the invite. Alfredo is delighted with his decision and moves to get the carriage. Asta follows and wonders if the Blandor family's food tastes any good. Later that night, the trio arrived at the Blandor estate. Asta steps out of the carriage and looks at the gigantic mansion in front of him. Since it is already late, Alfredo tells them to comfortably rest for the night and entrusts them to their maid, Lancy. The maid glowers at Damien, who squirms under her scrutinizing glare. He immediately acknowledges that he committed a mistake and earns a beating from his own maid. Meanwhile, Alfredo walks in the dark halls of the mansion and stops at a large door. He knocks and enters the room, reporting to Bianca, the matron of the house, that he just arrived after bringing Damien home, whom he found in the gray zone. After hearing this, the woman becomes upset and casts a spell, warning that if there's even a hair's worth of trouble with her son, all hell will break loose. Alfredo calms her down and explains the situation. After hearing what happened, Bianca calms down, which brings relief to the butler since his matron has a hard time controlling herself when it comes to the safety of her son. Bianca was once called the Blood Witch, and it's a true relief that she doesn't have to unleash her power if something had happened to her son. She expresses her gratitude to Alfredo, who is pleased to have served his matron dutifully. However, he reports that there is something unusual about the friend Damien made this time, and mentions that the young man had noticed his presence even before he showed himself and was prepared to counterattack. When they faced each other, the magic in the boy's hand was a mana bullet. The matron finds it an astonishing talent and says that for a child to possess such power from the gray zone is truly unusual. With this, Alfredo then asks the matron for a favor. The next day, to Asta's surprise, the butler excitedly asks him to be his successor, confident that he wouldn't refuse such an enticing offer. He is a butler from a prestigious family, and it's a perfect opportunity to leave behind his life as a stray from the gray zone and gain a high-income job and even honor. However, the butler is stunned and can't believe his ears when Asta answers him with a hard and flat no. Alfredo is so caught off guard that he tells himself that he must have just misheard Asta, rejecting his offer. Asta thanks him for the offer but tells him that he prefers things to stay the same. Alfredo still does not understand. He tries to talk to the boy and let him know that he does not know what he is rejecting. The butler compares him to a goblin in a canyon who is unaware of the dangers beyond the mountains. Asta disagrees and says that he is more of a wyvern who can be anywhere. Alfredo is so frustrated that he can't get through to the boy that he breaks the floor with a push of his feet. With clenched muscles, he swears to make the boy understand how terrifying the world is. Later, Alfredo introduces Asta to his group of butler apprentices, all of whom address Alfredo with respect by calling him Butler Master in unison. Alfredo asks Asta what he thinks of the elite group in front of them. Alta looks at the teen group and is impressed at how they exude the presence of well-trained veterans despite their age. The most attention-grabbing for him is how they are all looking at him with a smile that barely hides their disdain for him. Alfredo tells Asta that he will shine just as bright as them, or brighter, if he accepts his proposal. Still, the boy says no, disappointing the butler. One of the teen butlers, Winstor, raises his hand. Winstor shares his opinion that Asta may not be observant enough to properly access the offer. The apprentice offers to give Asta an experience to let him know how great the offer he is giving him is. Alfredo realizes that Winstor is suggesting to have a duel with Asta and thinks it is a good idea. He asks Asta if he wants to get into a duel with the young man. Asta looks at the group of apprentices and can sense that they hate him for being offered succession from Alfredo when he is just a vagrant who came out of nowhere. Asta asks to choose his opponent, then points at Winstor. Surprising everyone, he continues to point to 4 of the other apprentices and says he will take on 5 opponents. He asks the apprentice if they are scared of his challenge. Alfredo suddenly belly laughs, knowing he has the proper attitude to be his successor. The butler master agrees with the duel and offers the boy a gift if he can last 1 minute. He, however, warns that he must take responsibility if he can't last a minute. Asta deduces that he meant that he needs to accept the offer to succeed him if he loses. He accepts it, so they transfer to the training hall, where Asta and his opponents are at the center of the room, facing off against each other. Runfit, one of Alfredo's assistants, tries to dissuade the butler master from the duel by suggesting that the duel is dangerous. Alfredo is so committed to breaking Asta's stubbornness that he says it is the very reason the duel needs to happen. This worries Runfit, who thinks he will get in trouble if he injures Damien's guest in any way. Runfit sees Damien beside him and tries to convince him that his friend will be in trouble if they don't stop the duel. Damien's eyes spark at the excitement of the duel, and Runfit can tell that there is no chance to stop it now. Alfredo tells Runfit to start the match, and the young man cries as he agrees to do it. Runfit explains the rules to the duelists and how it is a turn-based system. Alfredo corrects him by saying that it is actually a free-for-all. This leads to Runfit telling the competitors that the duel is a free-for-all where the fight continues until one side surrenders. Asta and the 5 apprentices stare down. Winstor thinks about how ready he is to humble the boy he sees is a vagrant brat. Runfit starts the duel. Suddenly, Winstor is hit by a blue light to the stomach. The other 4 apprentices get hit with the same, causing many of them to be in too much pain to stand up straight. Asta gets near them with 5 compressed mana balls levitating on top of his hand. The boy tells his opponents to never underestimate him. Winstor is shocked to see that Asta is controlling 4 mana bullets at once in the middle of combat at that. Asta fires the mana bullets at his opponents while telling them to not judge people like him so easily. All the bullets hit the apprentices' foreheads. Asta gets in point-blank range of Winstor's face to punch him, as he warns the teen that the world is vast and bitter. He punches Winstor, sending him back. Asta tells the 5 that they need to learn all his lessons. He is imbuing them. Winstor shouts at him for punching when he is supposed to use magic. As Asta kicks Winstor's face, he assures him that he is using physical magic. Everyone has their jaws drop as they watch Asta beat up all 5 of his opponents. Alfredo remembers how Asta was about to use a mana bullet on him when they first met, and now he knows he would have died if he had been hit. He is impressed by the boy's mana control, as well as how monstrous he is now at beating up his opponents. A voice calls Alfredo, startling the butler. He looks around and sees that the head of the Blandors, Bianca, has arrived. Seeing her arrive to put a stop to the madness puts relief in Runfit. Alfredo reports to Bianca that the duel happened because he wanted to run a simple test. Bianca looks at all the teens beaten by Asta and sees that the test has gone too far. She tells Alfredo to have his trainees withdraw. She then turns to Damien and tells him to return to his room. Much to Runfit's shock, Bianca fires him. Later, Alfredo apologizes to Bianca for how the duel went. He goes on to report that Asta proved to be a monster in a brawl. He also reports that he also used magic bullets in the fight, but that he showed that he can make them more powerful than he anticipated. Bianca is impressed that the boy is gifted in controlling mana. He recalls the scene she saw and how all 5 trainees were utterly defeated by him. Alfredo is also disappointed to report that Asta rejected his offer to become his successor. Intrigued, Bianca asks her butler to bring Asta to her. Later, Asta arrives at her study. There, Bianca greets him and asks that he take a seat. Beside the woman is her son, Damien, who is busy munching on cookies. Bianca gives Asta a small box and tells him that it is the gift Alfredo promised. This leads to Asta remembering that the butler did promise him something if he won the duel. He is surprised that he got it so soon and was presented with it by the head of the household, no less. She asks that the boy open it. Asta opens the lid, which releases a glow of golden light. He sees that inside is a golden stone he recognizes as a high-grade material given only to the top 5 mages of the Blandor family. The gift is so grand that Asta thinks there is a big catch to all this. Bianca assures him that he can accept it without worry as a thank you for helping Damien when he ran away, as well as an apology for the duel. Asta asks if he needs to join the Blandor family if he eats the gift, but Bianca says he does not have to. He asks if there is poison in it, but she says there's none. She assures him that there are absolutely no conditions for the gift. It makes Alta happy that he gains something without worry. Bianca then asks if she can propose something to him, making Asta realize he was right all along, that there was a catch. Bianca tells him that she will arrange his academy admission if he agrees to attend to the academy with Damien. She reveals that Damien was supposed to enroll last year, but that it got postponed because the lad was strongly against doing it and ran away. Damien says that he will be okay at attending the academy if he is with Asta. Asta now sees that Bianca is afraid that Damien will run away again if she forces him to go to the academy again. He thinks about how the academy would open doors for him too. He does not want to have a leash on him, so he answers that he will think about it first. Bianca agrees for him to take his time but asks why he rejected Alfredo's proposal to become his successor. Asta remembers how Alfredo went on his knees to greet Damien the first time he met him and tells Bianca that he does not like getting on his knees too often. Bianca is confused about what he means. Meanwhile, Alfredo is outside with his ear on the door, and he is surprised at the boy's answer. Early in the morning, Asta is meditating with magic in his room and is surprised at how the top-grade gift given to him has upgraded his mana absorption rate. He transitions his thoughts to whether he will go to the academy and admits that there are a lot of advantage to going. Regardless, he still feels like he is walking into some kind of trap. He decides to go outside his room. The moment he sets foot out, a young man with platinum blonde hair like Damien's appears to ask if he is Asta. Asta lies and says he is not Asta, shocking the lad. The blonde young man sees that he has dingy gray hair and an irritated look in his eyes, like everybody said, so he thought he was the Asta everyone was talking about. Asta is annoyed that he is described in an unfavorable way. He tells the young man that his hair color changes a lot depending on the light. He also makes his eyes look innocent to avoid making himself look irritated. The teen looks at him carefully, concludes that he is not who he is looking for, and walks away. Alfredo suddenly runs towards Asta and calls him by his name to tell him that he lost sleep because he was not able to tell him that he does not need to use his knees much to succeed him as the family butler. The platinum blonde teen looks at Asta again. He sees that he was right when he called him Asta and yells at him for lying. The blonde teen is about to threaten him, only for him to see Alfredo staring threateningly at him. He says that he will forgive Asta, but that he needs to go to the mage hall later. Asta smiles, knowing that he is in for something interesting once he goes to the mage hall later. He then asks Alfredo if he can meet with Bianca. Bianca meets up with the boy at her study and asks why he came to meet so early in the morning. Asta answers that he has already made up his mind and agrees to enroll in the academy. Bianca is stunned that he answered so quickly. She is relieved and tells him to make himself comfortable in the house while they wait for the arrangements. Later, Bianca meets up with Alfredo and tells him that Asta agreed to enroll in the academy. The butler is proud of the boy's wise decision and is all fired up for his future. He shares that his plan is for Asta to feel hopeless once they no longer cover the pay for the next semester. He envisions himself as the bright light that will offer a hand of sponsorship to the boy once the time comes. Bianca is sighing at the butler's happiness. She remembers how Alfredo was roped in by the previous head butler with the same sponsor tactic he has now. She thinks Alfredo is a poor guy for not seeing how pathetic he is. Meanwhile, Asta is heading to the chapel, which he recognizes as the mage hall. He goes inside, where a man with robes and a hood is waiting for him. Ada describes the features of the teen with platinum blonde hair who told him to go to the mage hall. The hooded man recognizes who he is talking about and asks that Asta follow him. The man guides him to a door. He says he should enter. Asta goes inside, where he is suddenly hit by flying papers. Inside the room is a man with platinum blonde hair like the other Blandors, and he introduces himself as Wenji. Asta remembers his past life, when he was infiltrating a magic academy in his time as a troubleshooter. He saw in the office of the academy academics who were so sick of their tough jobs of studying papers that they pulled their hair out. They were so in denial of their hair loss that they wore hoods to cover their bald spots. Eventually, they gave up covering their head, just revealed their bald spot. Eventually, they just shaved their heads. Eventually, they researched magic to make hair grow, even though they never had success doing it. Now he is looking at Wenji, who is more relaxed and refined than any academic he has seen before. Wenji apologizes for his brother's rude behavior when Asta meets with him in the morning. Asta asks if he works at the Magic Academy, so Wenji answers that he is currently serving as the Academy's Vice Dean. It surprises Asta that he is already the Vice Dean at his young age. He determines that this means Wenji is truly skilled. Wenji congratulates him for attending Xenion Academy and goes on to explain that he was a graduate of Xenion, too. Wenji then goes to his main point and asks Asta if he would risk his life to save a friend. Asta is confused why he is asking this. Wenji says that his questions concern the reputation of the Blandor family. He pulls out a book and says he will give it to the boy depending on his answer. Asta recognizes the book as the pages that hold the core secret to the Blandor family's healing light magic. Meanwhile, in the garden, Bianca is cutting flowers from the bushes. Her thoughts go to how there is no longer a weight on her mind after Damien agreed to go to the academy. She is glad to learn that Asta has been a good friend to her son and does not mind his attitude problem because of his age. She also thinks about how good it is that Asta did not change how he treats Damien after he learned that he was rich. She admires how his personality is like that of a bird that can fly anywhere. She believes that she can't let Asta go for her son Damien's sake. Back at the Mage Hall, Asta is suspicious of why Wenji is offering him the secret of the Blandor family and thinks he might be leading him to a trap. No matter how he looks at Wenji's eyes, he can't tell what he is thinking. He determines that this means the man is used to wearing a mask to hide his true intent. Asta makes sure Wenji knows that he is getting impatient and demands that he tell him what he wants already. This angers Wenji, who tells him to be careful, or he will be killed. Asta dares him to kill him already if he wants. Wenji stands up from his seat with an intimidating aura that sends papers flying. He stares daggers at Asta, yet the boy remains calm with his arms crossed. Wenji suddenly changes to a light mood with a smile. He tells Asta that he has passed his test. He shares that he did his test because he needs someone he can trust with information, and that he was curious what his brother and mother see in him. Wenji admits that he intentionally made it so that Asta and his brother would not be on the best of terms, so that he could get involved in the conflict. It makes Asta wonder what kind of man he is if he can use his siblings as pawns for his schemes. Wenji reveals that he did all these convoluted things to have an excuse to talk to him because he is under surveillance by the Declan family. He elaborates that he is currently researching the Declan family's heavenly origin magic, but that he was found out. Astra reviews that, in the Declan's point of view, they think the Blandors must be trying to destroy their secret magic. Wenji admits to him that destroying it was his intent, but now he plans to harness their heavenly origin magic for himself. Asta deems him crazy for his plan. Wenji's high-risk attitude makes Asta wonder if his research was what led to the Declan family's more refined heavenly origin magic and the annihilation of the Blandor family in his past life. He remembers how Farron, the head of the Declan family, made it his main priority to kill the Blandors. Now he understands that Wenji's research was the reason why Farron was absurdly strong. Asta asks why Wenji is telling him all these. Wenji says he did not share his heavenly origin research with his family, so he believes that there is a spy planted in the mansion who could have told the Declans. Asta advises him to just side with the Declans, but Wenji says he can't do that because of personal reasons. Wenji offers the boy to work for him and promises to reward him for his troubles. He grabs a thesis paper and asks Asta to deliver it to Professor Perun once he gets to the Zenian Academy. In exchange, he will give Asta the secret to the Blandor family's healing light spell. Asta smiles at the opportunity. The boy counters that he wants the healing light spell as well as his heavenly origins research once it is completed. Asta puts his foot down by saying he won't agree if it is anything less than what he is asking. Wenji reluctantly agrees to share with him his research once it is completed. He adds the condition that he also wants a guarantee that Asta will help him when the time comes. Asta takes the thesis paper and promises that it will happen. He makes a joke that he does not know how to read the thesis paper, only to take it back by saying he was just kidding. Asta asks if Professor Perun is someone trustworthy. Wenji reminisces on his academy days with Perun and how they used to have friendly competitions on who was smarter back then. Asta regrets that this means there is another lunatic like Wenji running around in the academy. The next morning, Asta receives a stock of books from Wenji. Asta sees the note where Wenji tells him that he is giving him the essential books he needs to cultivate his intellect. Asta stacked the books in order, step by step, and determined that Wenji is a genius for selecting the best books for him. The boy grabs a pen and paper and lists Wenji as his sponsor for books. He dreams of the future where he can display the healing light grimoire for the public, and how all he has to do is ask Damien for it to happen. He also reviews the 132 books Wenji gave him, and how he can include them in the tower, so that anyone who studies them can have a strong foundation to learn magic. He now realizes that his tower's identity will be a place that offers learning to those who seek it. Meanwhile, at the Mage Hall, Wenji is looking out of the window in deep thought, since he can't let go of the fact that Asta is an interesting person, unlike anyone he has seen before. He remembers the boy when Asta dared him to kill him. He laughs, as he knows through the boy's determined eyes that he had no fear of death. Wenji believes he may have just found a person who can stand on the same level as him. The next morning, Asta is getting ready to go to the academy by buttoning on his school uniform. Lancey enters his room to tell him that it is almost time to depart. She is glad to see that the academy uniform suits the boy well. As Asta walks, he thinks about how privileged he is to be exempted from the academy exam just because of the Blandor family. He gets to the carriage, where Damien and Bianca meet with him. Bianca tells Asta that she wishes him well, so the boy thanks her. As the carriage moves, Asta looks out the window and thinks of the start of his new journey. As the carriage moved forward, Damien's eyes lit up with wonder and amazement at every little thing they passed. Meanwhile, Asta looked at the book provided by Wenji, confirming his skill as a scholar. The principles are simple, but interpretations vary endlessly. For example, take something as basic as water. To some, it is a means of life, a resource one cannot live without. To others, it is a disastrous flood that can take the lives of many in an instant. The difference is just a matter of perspective. Even with the same principle, each great family has advanced depending on their viewpoint. After finishing all the magic texts in the subspace, Asta realized something. Wenji's curriculum connects directly to Declan's celestial principles. His thoughts are interrupted as Damien calls out, wanting him to look over. With sparkling eyes, the young man announces that they've arrived. They were speeding toward Xingyan Magic Academy. It's the first time Asta sees it, but his expression remains unchanged. On the first day of entrance, it's tradition for all students to walk in themselves, regardless of status. As such, this is where they part ways with Lancey, who wishes them success and wisdom. Dropped off, they wave goodbye to the head maid. Damien grabs his friend's arm in a hurry, not wanting to arrive late and run out of seats at the ceremony. The thought of the entrance ceremony being first come first served was ridiculous, but Asta realizes that it must have been bait Lancey cooked up for the boy. He allows himself to be dragged along, at least for now. They later find themselves in a huge lecture hall, with other new students mumbling and exchanging small talk. The youngest Blandor is filled with excitement as he sees the amount of people. The sight reaffirms his belief in Lancey's lie, that they might have run out of seats. Knowing better, Asta fishes their registration documents from his pocket, which says exactly where they're supposed to be. Damien worries about losing their spots and wants to settle right away, and it's hard to believe that he's the same boy who was so against attending the academy. Suddenly, a loud thud sounded as he fell to the floor. Looking up, he sees a large and older-looking man, wearing a similar uniform. The man glares at him with a demeaning look, and asks if he has a problem. Laughing it off as he stood up, the young one said he wasn't hurt at all. He waves an apology, saying he must not have been looking ahead properly. However, the man stops them with a stern command. Showing his sleeve with a hint of saliva, he questions what they just got on his clothes. Judging by his aura, he was obviously from a noble family, and Damien had to tread carefully. However, the carefree boy used even more spit in an attempt to clean the initial one off. He was quite proud of his work, but the classmate obviously didn't feel the same way. Enraged, he throws a punch right at the foolish one's head. To his surprise, his fist won't move and another voice calls out. A hand held is firmly in place, stopping it inches from the target's face. Asta intervenes just in time, and calmly suggests that they stop the altercation there. This only further frustrates the large student, who demands to know who he is. Without much thought, he introduces himself as Damien's friend. Not a lot of friends are loyal enough to take a beating for the other, but he'll regret it today. He didn't hope for much, but making friends on the first day was now off Asta's list. For now, he has to settle the matter with fists rather than words. An urgent voice cut through the crowd, asking what was going on. It was between a descendant of the Dolanfei family and a couple the others don't know about. The size difference was quite huge, and people were already sure who would win. Another student calls the others ridiculous for just standing around when a fight was about to break out. The right thing to do was contain the aggression to a safe space. Onlookers are told to give them space, while mages are instructed to put up a barrier around the area. With everyone doing as they're told, bets with meal tickets soon start pouring in, and cheers follow soon after. Meanwhile, one man stayed behind, leaning casually as he smiled and watched things unfold. Hicks introduces himself as the second son of his family. Unleashing his aura and taking on a fighting stance, he asks for their names. Asta deadpans and shares that he doesn't have great lineage and can be considered a passerby. Since the small stage is a handicap for mages, the large student offers him the first move and tells the young one to step forward. The former troubleshooter smirked, finding him absolutely hilarious. He starts mocking his opponent and asks if he's being so talkative out of fear. The provocation works and Hicks is filled with anger. Cursing him out, he stepped in, brimming with power as he pulled his fist back to punch. He swings with all his might, but a simple duck is all that's needed to make him miss. Looking up and coating his own fist with concentrated mana, Asta reminds him that it's a 2-on-1 and strikes the arrogant student across his thick face. Hicks foolishly believed that he could take the student's punch without any problems, but this belief is soon smashed, just like his face. One punch sends him staggering back, but he surprisingly regains his footing. He couldn't believe how heavy the single hit was, and starts to question if the boy before him really was a magician. Just then, the wound from the punch glowed as healing magic was applied. The source was the boy before him, smiling jovially while healing his own enemy. He was still trying to make sense of what was happening, when Asta continued the fight on his own. Noting how the noble could afford to look around, he unleashes another heavy punch. Hicks put his arms together to keep defending against the flurry of hits. The boy with demonic eyes delivered the beating to their enemies, while the one with bright and friendly eyes healed them back to full health. As a pair, they were more crazy and sinister than they were strong. Taking all the blows, Hicks' knees trembled and buckled. He was scared, and it was obvious as his face had lost its color. Meanwhile, the others behind him cheered on, stupidly thinking that he was holding back. After all, he's the hope of the warriors, who carries the might and pride of the Dolanfei name. Chanting in his favor soon echoed throughout the room, and he had to soak all of it in for a moment. Perhaps due to the support and pressure, he gathered whatever will he had left and screamed at the magician, questioning his audacity to attack him as he had. However, another hit stops him from speaking and countering. Since it's still blocked, Asta can't help but feign amazement. Hicks was sick of being underestimated and charged his fist with all the power he had left. Like before, he swings with intense might, and the impact sends waves inside the barrier. The audience cheers, believing the conclusion had finally been reached. While he's sure that the punch hit, the second son can't help but feel that it was so light. Asta flew up from the force, but landed and flipped gracefully to regain his balance. As if not getting hurt at all, he dusts the point of impact off his shirt. Hicks stared in bewilderment, and his silence was quickly replaced with screams of disbelief. He tries to follow up and dashed forward, but his opponent, having felt his power, was completely unbothered. Since Damien keeps healing the enemy, Asta has to knock him out with one big strike. Looking at his friend completely enjoying the moment, he decides on the right amount of power to achieve his goal. He prepared to use a technique he developed with his comrades during his previous life. From the collision of magic particles, the mage extracts energy. It's magic but belongs neither to martial arts nor magic itself. Rather, it is a purely technical application of magical properties. Using collision style, he moves faster and punches his enemy with an immense concentration of mana. The barrier casters wince and struggle to keep their shield up, and are the first to see the outcome of the battle. While Asta finished his move, Hicks' arm was still raised high. Just then, the second son fell to his knees, then completely fell to the floor, unconscious, soon after. The room was silent and everyone was in absolute shock, not expecting this ending at all. As such, the victor raises his hand in triumph, and instructs them all to cheer and respond accordingly. Loud cries of awe immediately filled the hall, and they couldn't believe the fighter was even a magician. Damien then ran to his friend, delightfully announcing that they had won the duel. Hopefully, this stops the young one from sucking his thumb moving forward. Meanwhile, the silent watcher from before took note. They were all students of the Magic Academy, so fighting with such barbaric moves was nothing but vulgar. Just then, a professor finally arrives and cuts through the crowd, demanding to know who had the gall to brawl during the entrance ceremony. He checks on everyone, threatening to take them all if no one owns up. Asta is used to causing trouble and was already thinking of escaping, but Damien smiled brightly, taking all the blame for the first day altercation. Confirming the real culprits, things move forward and Hicks is left beaten on the floor. The two troublemakers are brought to the office on the first day of school. Since they're confessing so honestly, the professor lets them off without a penalty, but promises to keep a close eye on them from then on. Asta nodded along, trying to avoid any problems, and they're soon allowed to get along with their day. Fortunately, the entrance ceremony hasn't even started yet. His entrance earns a few murmurs, mostly about how he beat a martial artist with such a small body. Damien laughed and waved, enjoying how everyone was looking at them already. Asta follows their registration form and finds their empty seats, which his friend mistakenly believes was kept free by a kind student. The ceremony starts, and an old and small man gives a speech. However, it goes on for a long time, so much so that the length actually becomes impressive. Meanwhile, Damien dozes off midway, and Asta chuckles as he uses the boy's arm to wipe drool off his own face. Just then, a staff member tells the headmaster that there's someplace he's urgently needed. What could possibly be more important than the entrance ceremony? They watched as the old man ended his speech earlier than he intended. That said, the event will continue, and he gestures for someone to replace him. A woman with confident steps walked up to the podium. To everyone's surprise, she screamed at the top of her lungs, calling everyone to attention. In an instant, everyone was rudely awakened and sat with stiff spines, even the other professors. Her name was Jera, and she was going to continue the ceremony herself. Skipping the speech, she calls Dahlia, representative of the Magic Division, for the freshman oath. The others looked on, not expecting someone of her lineage to take the exam, despite being a noble. However, such thoughts were foolish, when directed towards the third child of the house head. Asta observed in silence, well aware of the name she carried. If Declan was the most famous in the East, her Denai house was second most renowned. Among them, the girl grew to become the future representative mage. She was quite skilled, and actually helped Asta a lot during his time as a troubleshooter. That said, they don't get along all that well, and could be called bad friends at best. Still, it was nice seeing her join the academy at the same time he is. Moving on, the representative of the martial arts division, Paul, is also called on. A young man with a scar on his nose stepped up. Since no surname was used, he must not come from nobility, which must drive the others mad. The two representatives lead the oath and finish in no time. The next step is to introduce the professors, who will be teaching the freshman class. As they're being called on, Asta locks eyes with Dahlia, and can't help but feel that she's intentionally staring at him. This doesn't matter much, as she trips over her own feet and embarrassingly falls over. Asta was waiting for a certain name to come up, so he remained silent as the professors took the stage and introduced themselves one by one. Finally, Professor Perun appeared, introducing himself as the teacher of basic magic principles. Surprisingly, the atmosphere he gives is far different from Wenji's crazy vibe, but the young man shouldn't judge too early, as even the eldest Balder wears a mask of a true gentleman. With his final words, it was finally time to end the entrance ceremony. The students are instructed to follow the attendants to their assigned dormitories. Seeing Damien snoozing off again, Asta wakes him up and says he's been expelled after being caught sleeping. It takes a moment for the words to register, but a distraught expression soon took over the boy's face, and a loud scream rang throughout the full hall. It's hard to believe that a little teasing could earn such a reaction from him. Later on, Asta arrives at his dorm room on the top floor. Upon opening the doors, he's met with a sophisticated room, proving just how impressive the academy is. Beside the beds were boxes of living supplies, supposedly all the same for all students. He spends some time arranging his things and getting settled, knowing the difference in class will soon show, as everyone buys their own things. Hearing a sound by the door, he realizes that his roommate has arrived. Paul walked into the room, but he looks surprisingly annoyed. Sighing in resignation, the young man says he wants to live quietly. He doesn't care what his classmate does, and would prefer that they don't meddle in each other's affairs. Asta answers with silence and observant eyes, but the hard-headed roommate sternly demands a verbal answer. Asta is intrigued by his roommate's demanding attitude. He supposedly entered the academy as a top student, so just how good is he? Eager to find out, the mage feints a move forward. Paul is confused but reacts immediately, already unsheathing his blade from the scabbard. It was honestly impressive, as even the way he held his weapon made sure that his movements were unobstructed. A familiar voice calls from outside, telling him to hurry already. Feigning ignorance, Asta tells his roommate that he was just moving to the door. Patting Paul's shoulder lightly, he tells him to do whatever he wants, but jokingly warns him against complaining about his late-night singing. Outside, Damien excitedly reunites with his friend and asks about his housemate. The young man brushes it off, saying he's too busy to get to know others. Moving on, the carefree boy invites him to tour the campus, told that it's a must-do on the first day. This is true, as the vastness of the academy often causes students to get lost. Looking at the spacious area just in front of him, he agrees that it might not be such a bad idea. That said, there was something bothering and brushing against his senses. Above the buildings, he feels various flows of mana, all of which were coming from Declan House troubleshooters. He's eager to see how many there are, so Asta gladly joins his friend on the tour. They spend the entire day walking around, looking at all the sights, most of which earned Damien's audible gasps of amazement. The lake was incredible to him, as they didn't have such a thing back at home. It honestly felt like a babysitting task, which must be why Lancey paired them up in the first place. Wanting to deal payback, Asta tells the noble to ask that one be made for him. All it takes is digging some ground and pouring some water. Damien is immediately convinced and intends to ask for a lake bigger than the one in school. Lancey sneezes ominously in the mansion, while her young master wonders what to name the lake. However, Asta suggests an even more ominous name for the huge and troublesome project, and the mere mention sends a chill down the maid's spine. He wasn't done yet, and put the boy's attention on the amazing statue, which was going to be the big project number 2. Tweaking it a bit, he suggests a life-size dragon with intricate scales. While Damien agreed to everything, Lancey started sweating and shaking at home. Since they've seen all there was to see on campus, it was time to head back to the dorms. There are roughly 10 troubleshooters stationed throughout, and based on their distribution, the center must be the second magic hall. It's where Professor Perrin's laboratory is, meaning he's most likely their target. Declan knows Wenji has allies, so they'd naturally suspect the professor, who has several connections. Sensing an hostile presence behind him, Asta smiles. He was wondering when they were going to start, but now they've latched on at the perfect time. With this, he can find out just how much they already know. The night grew deep, silence filled the streets, and street lights illuminated the area. A cloaked figure hopped around the campus and into the magic hall. Moving quietly, he's greeted by an ally, who wonders where the others are. They supposedly went ahead, following emergency orders from headquarters, to gather at the target's nest. Clarifying, the man specifies the sub-target. Since the main had his tail stepped on, tonight will be dedicated to delivering the objective to the sub. Making sense of things, the troubleshooter concludes that since the Wenji has moved, the likely subject of the order would be none other than Perun. However, the problem was breaking through the monstrous professors without their upper legion's help. Number 1 won't provide assistance, and neither will the other single numbers. However, the fire demon Kala will be joining their operation. The name strikes fear into the man's heart. The Red Jewel is the vice leader of Declan's mage court, but he's cold-blooded and willing to use all means for the sake of the mission. In other words, the lives of lowly troubleshooters like them will be put on the line as well. He's reassured that it might not come to that, as exposing a well-known nobility is also a burden. This fortunately calms their nerves and allows them to move. If they don't meet up with the others soon, their chances of survival will plummet. The pair disappeared into the night, unaware that Asta listened to their complete conversation, and was now aware of their plan this midnight. What's more, it involved Kala. Even in Asta's active time, Kala was someone who was enjoying his prime. After Declan risked everything to fight and take Blandor House down, he stayed with the declining family and proved his loyalty. Because of this, he earned Farron's favor. He's still dangerous now, but his true prime was after the war with Blandor. As a fire demon no one could stop, he made his mark as a mage who led wars. In other words, catching him before that was imperative. In addition to his strength, his magic is one of the family's fire-type secret arts. This was another unexpected gain that could work in Asta's favor, but there's something puzzling. Their target, Wenji's paper, is with him, but they without a doubt believe it'll be delivered to Perun. The paper with him can't be fake, and it's unlikely that the target is something other than the documents. This only means that the delivery today is the fake one. In a dorm room, a familiar figure prepared to move in the night. Paul's body was strapped with gear, and he covered himself with a cloak, making sure that his nosy roommate was fast asleep on his bed. However, little did he know that the slumbering body was a dummy. In another area in the second magic hall, Perun was all alone in the dark. He cursed pesky Declan troubleshooters. They weren't crossing the line, so he was holding back, but now they're invading his territory. That said, he didn't expect them to come so boldly like this, and there was only one reason they were acting this way. Seeing the door swing open and a man enter, he confirms the presence of mercenaries. Additionally, he calls out to Paul, whose eyes widen as he didn't expect his name to be called out. The young one is told to refine the form of his mana next time, since it's the basics of covert operations. Seeing him hand a sealed document, Perun says there might not be a next time. Taking the document, the professor realizes that his friend Wenji was the one, working so hard to avoid Declan's eyes. However, he got caught so pathetically at the end. He corrects himself, knowing his friend won't be bested just like that, and wonders what in the world he was planning. Just then, the wall of his study exploded, but the professor was unfazed. A man stepped into the hall to greet him. Kala wondered if a man of science would even know who someone like him was. Paul reacted, surprised by the unexpected turn of events. He recognizes the fire demon, who wonders if the professor shares the same knowledge. Irking him, Perun says it's his first time hearing that name, so he should stop the nonsense and get to the point. With an insulting gaze, he says his disgusting smell is making his nose rot away. Kala scoffed and couldn't help but laugh. It's the first time he's been treated that way, but he humors the target and skips niceties. He points to Paul and flatly states that he's going to die. As for the professor, it might not be bad to leave an eye and an arm. The fire demon casts his magic, but before he could launch his spell, Perun moves quickly and puts himself between the man and the student. Proving his skill as a mage, he summons a barrier of mana. A huge explosion blows the academy hall open. Paul covers his eyes instinctively, but is surprised to see that they were completely unharmed, shielded by the professor's ice magic. Calling to him, Perun says he'll consider him a mercenary before a student, so he's to take care of his own life. Confirming the order, the young one takes his blade. Since there are no alarms blaring despite the huge explosion, it's highly likely that the Declan troubleshooters set up concealment magic. Relying on the rookie mercenary might not be the best option. Considering how green he was, Kala is sure that the document handed over is from Blandor. Since the sub-target doesn't seem so keen to hand it over, the next option is to have a little bit of fun and forcibly take it from his hands. Blazing flames erupt as the fire demon gets ready to fight. Nearby, other troubleshooters were also lying in wait, prepared to make a move. Kala was like a demon bringing hellfire, and while Paul was flabbergasted like a child, Perun was also wielding magic like a mage worthy of his title. Their clash is strong enough to immediately demolish the building. Watching the sparks and blasts from afar was Asta, who simply confirmed that the fight was finally starting. He puts a mask on. It's been a while, but it was time to move, not as Asta, but as troubleshooter number 1. To start his operation, Asta prayed to the moon goddess, asking that she allow him to be a righteous troubleshooter that night. That said, he was never really righteous, was he? He lets it go and leaps toward the battle. The magic hall was already ridden with flames and collapsing. Kala laughed as he continued to launch spells, and asked the mercenary if he was keeping up. Paul was breathing hard, obviously struggling. He was extremely lucky, as he didn't even know that the cloak from his captain was a protective artifact. Told to move aside, he sees Perun's chilling and demonic figure step forward. He shoots an ice blast to counter the fire demon's own. Deeming the young man worthy of a little more trust, the professor enchants and coats his blade with mana. He's asked if he can block a few more blasts. There was no question or choice, as failing to do so would end in death. The pairing was essentially mage and guard, quite the reliable combination. Burning through the ice, Kala continues his onslaught, and Paul is forced to defend as planned. However, with him preoccupied, the mage is left with one less guard to protect him. Perun does his best to take care of it, but is going to get dragged around soon. In this case, he has to make a decisive move to turn the tables. After all, the fire demon won't settle for less. When the amount of mana distributed in nature is limited, and there are two commanding entities, a control battle begins. Not new to such situations, Perun pours his power in, wondering how much they can take. Understanding his intentions, Kala chuckled, and was more than happy to compete in a battle for power. Their mana clashed and screeched. It was so powerful that the concentrated ball of pure magic grew and grew, wreaking havoc throughout the area. Forced to keep his distance, Paul couldn't help but watch the monsters helplessly. There was no opening at all to take advantage of. If it was going to be like that, then they should have just fought each other from the start, and not get everyone caught up in the mess that is their power. The troubleshooters are told to stand by and catch their breath, unless they want to die. Before they could confirm how many of their men are left, a single figure zoomed past their group. It was an ambush, and the mystery man was headed straight for the clashing mages. Asta unleashed his magic like they were, and he's powerful enough to surprise them with his presence that matched their own. Like an unexpected player in their game, he announces his arrival. Confused by his interruption, Kala screamed in frustration and indignance. However, the masked man had no time for this and dashed in to grip his neck. Told that he was going to be buried where he stood, the fire demon realized, in that moment, that he was actually going to die. In a desperate bid for life, he uses another spell and casts a blast just inches away from his body. This fortunately distances him from his assassin, but his body starts to break from the inside due to mana backflow. To make matters worse, Asta looked completely unharmed and was still going for him. Other troubleshooters appeared, finally making their move to support. Kala's priority was to suppress the backflow, so he takes a potion to help with this. That said, he questions where such a guy suddenly came from. Looking up, he stared in amazement as he watched Asta eliminate all the troubleshooters on his own. It was an extremely efficient method, using optimal and fast magic without an inch of wasted movement. He catches himself admiring his enemy. Snapping out of it, he casts spells once more, determined to destroy the man who might turn out to be the biggest threat to his life. Multiple magic circles combined and launched a blast of different forms of fire. As powerful as it was, the area of effect was great and killed all his allies that were in the way. Even Asta was caught off guard, not expecting such a powerful display of magic to be shot at him. The battleground exploded with Kala's magic. He's suffering from backflow again, but that's not the problem right now. He doesn't even care about the allies he killed, and is only concerned with the mission's success. In that sense, the masked man is a target that has to be eliminated without question. The fire demon chuckles to himself, amused that he got too excited. If he joins the other troubleshooters, they should be able to kill Perun. As he was about to replenish his mana, a chilling voice asks if that's all he has to offer. He looks like a madman outside, but inside, he's just a cold and cunning snake. From the very start, Asta expected him to blow everyone away, including his allies. Aiming mana bullets, he says his ruthlessness is exactly what's going to cause his defeat. The number one shoots, and the bullet travels like a beam. Before Kala could even finish being shocked by how fast it was, the projectile hits and goes through his head. Killed in an instant, he falls to the cold and hard ground. With the battle over, Asta walked over to the corpse of his enemy. He's undeniably impressed. Any other mage would have died from his ambush, but he managed to counterattack with swift judgment. Him killing his allies was a huge help, as the lone fighter would have lost a battle of attrition. After all, his mana capacity is still not at its best. Poking around the dead man's clothes, he looks for something specific. Since most combat mages are distrustful, they tend to carry their secret arts with them. He finds and takes this for himself, promising to take a look later. Moving on, the next step was to regroup with Perun, who spent a lot of time freezing the troubleshooter rats who gave him a hard time. He summons a ball of mana, and asks if Asta was a rat just like them. Sighing, he calls him battle-hungry, in comparison to his madman counterpart. Without further explanation, the professor relaxes, realizing that he must be sent by Wenji. It's surprising that he's trusting him just based on that. Regardless, he asks about the mercenary that was sent, and if the thesis was split into 2 parts. Asta didn't hear anything about that, but it's likely that the other is a fake. The madman must have used it as a lure to draw the enemies out. It seems he wants to heighten the city and academy defenses and reduce Declan's influence. Also, it's odd that the Imperial Knights haven't arrived, regardless of the concealment spell. The family must have pulled some strings on that side as well. Asked if he's the actual messenger, Asta hands the real thesis over to the professor. Parun asks if he also knows about the content, a dangerous question that may spark another lethal fight. Their answers make the reality clear, and while Asta doesn't mind a fight, he'd rather not lose a reliable ally. Fortunately, the professor feels the same way, so he accepts the thesis for now. He wonders if the boy has anything he wants. After all, Wenji only allies with people whose desires clearly align with his own. To build trust, Parun has to give something he wants as well. After thinking about it for a moment, Asta asks for a book, a request not expected at all. He blatantly shares his plan to build a huge tower and fill it with books anyone can read, so it'd be great if he could contribute. Amused, Parun accepts and offers to write a book to donate instead. Before parting, they have to settle how to keep in touch, as he still needs to deliver the next thesis. Asta would rather not get another man's contact information, so he hands the new ally a communication crystal, which evenly breaks beads according to the purpose. With this, they minimize unnecessary contact, which is the best-case scenario for both sides. Just like that, Parun is left all alone, feeling oddly gross. Not long after, the Empire's Imperial Knights arrived and quickly secured the scene. Troubleshooters were arrested, and students were evacuated as a precaution of a second attack. Of course, Asta took the opportunity to blend in with the other students, and even reunited with Damien, who looks like he just woke up from a deep sleep. Given the troubleshooters and Kala's body, the Declan family should lie low for a while. That said, he doesn't understand something that happened earlier. The mark on his chest imbued its energy in his barrier when he blocked the fire demon's spell. It was like an exclusion phenomenon, mainly used by elemental mages, that allows rapid casting without damaging oneself. He was stumped, not understanding the reaction and activation conditions as all. It's just one more thing he has to figure out during this second life, and he should be able to find a clue in Lapider, the largest library in the East. Just then, an unfamiliar voice called to Asta, checking if he's okay. A boy named Chen introduced himself with a smile. For some reason, the stranger suddenly points out that he's a good fighter. This might be bad, as having his identity exposed would pose several problems. He wonders if he has to get rid of the boy. Chen expresses how impressed he was when he saw Asta fight during the first day. He's relieved that he doesn't have to eliminate a classmate. Saying he's too tired, he declines the request for a demonstration of his abilities. Despite this, the pair could feel the stranger walking behind them. Chen apologizes and explains that he just wants to be with someone, and hasn't made friends yet. Fitting in definitely isn't easy, and Asta understands that. The academy promises equal treatment, but its students don't necessarily adhere to that belief. As such, he allows the fellow student to tag along for now. After all, it's a bit unsettling to be alone, especially when incidents like this one happen. The former troubleshooter catches himself having a normal conversation. He's only met crazy people in his life this time around, and has forgotten what it's like to be normal. The thought of it all makes him smile just a little bit. Now, his life in the academy officially begins. The sun shined on the campus, and students went to their classes as if nothing happened at all. A large and deep yawn echoed throughout the lecture hall, and Damien complained about being sleepy before class had even begun. Just then, Chen greeted the two and took the empty seat beside theirs. He makes small talk and whines about coming to school as usual, despite what happened last night. Judging from their previous conversation, the newcomer doesn't seem to be of noble or wealthy descent. All in all, he seems to be a decent friend without intimidation. Chen shares that their homeroom teacher is going to be Jera, who is well known for slaughtering a bunch of trolls in one strike. Just then, the famous teacher stepped inside. Seeing a bright-haired woman walk into the room, Asta recognizes her as the professor who stood in for the headmaster during the ceremony. Greeting everyone, she immediately addresses the commotion last night and says there's no need to worry. Before they start the class, they'll measure their mana and are asked about quality and quantity. A hand from the seat shot up, and the student first introduces herself as Arzan. She thinks both are important, but more so quality if a certain level of mana is supported. When competing with a mage of the same level, the one with better quality has the advantage. It's a reasonable conclusion, especially from the point of view of a veteran combatant. However, it isn't perfect, and that's evident in Jera's dissatisfied reaction. The click of her tongue catches the students off guard. She asks about the house Arzin is from. Hearing that she's from the family of a marquis, the professor scowls indignantly and says it's no wonder. The blatant insult strikes the girl's heart, but the class moves on and the floor is open for another answer. As no one seems willing to raise their hand, the stern woman picks one from the seats herself and orders them to answer. A boy named Ipel expresses that he values mana quantity more, as it'd have more impact in large-scale battles. Asta acknowledges this as well, and concludes by saying that importance relies on context. However, Jera simply rolls her eyes in disgust. Even the former troubleshooter is surprised and unsure what she's looking for. A bunch others are asked for the answers, each receiving an equally spiteful response. Soon enough, the entire room is filled with students displeased with her obnoxious attitude. Asta wonders what answer is ruining the atmosphere. Done with it, Jera says she's heard everyone's thoughts. In fact, all their answers are close to the correct one, but there actually isn't one right answer. They're told to think carefully about the kind of answers they gave her. Did they align with their own ideals, or did they just try to give one that would appeal to her? A mage must never lose their subjectivity at any time, and must carry out their own will. Returning the question to them, she asks if they have the mindset of a true mage. From now on, they should, and that's exactly what she wanted to convey earlier. Told to keep it in their hearts, the students blush from the unexpected approach in the lesson. Asta sighs as his suspicions about the cleverly twisted affair is confirmed. Now, they're told to come up one by one and have their mana measured. Arzin, who is still in tears from being insulted, is called on. Jera appoints her as the class representative, impressed by her first answer earlier. Suddenly filled with encouragement, she sprinted forward to help record mana levels. Asta is impressed, understanding how the professor trains her students. Chen bit his clothes in jealousy. Just then, the assistant professor is prompted to proceed. He takes the silk cloth off to reveal a mana measuring device, which is extremely difficult to obtain. Everyone was seeing it for the first time, and it was time to see their own mana levels. Who knows, there might be a monster hidden in the class. Her point is proven a little while later, and everyone gasps in shock as they see Damien's unimaginable numbers. Jera says the measuring device is easy to use, and instructs the representative to start by pouring mana into the crystal orb. As soon as Arzin touched the ball, it glowed brightly as if starting to compute internally. A bunch of signs and inscriptions appeared throughout a magic circle, but it soon flashed a big number 4 in the middle of the room. There are several indicators for her power, but the number in the center shows one's refinement level and mana quality, on a scale of 1 to 10. Last year's freshman averaged a 3, so her score was impressive. The girl blushes, delighted by the quick assessment. To check her quantity, she just has to keep channeling mana into the orb. The highest is 100. Last year's average was 15, so her 17 is another solid result. Judging both by quantity and quality, it's apparent that she's been working hard. The student's face turns bright red, hearing that the teacher is proud of her. Similarly, Asta could already see that she was going to grow up into a model graduate student. Jera leaves things in the assistant's hands, as she has some other matters to attend to. The test proceeds smoothly, and those who finish discuss how to improve. Meanwhile, Chen invites his new friend to get measured as well. Surprised gasps rang throughout the room, as someone gets a mana refinement level of 6. What's more, her mana amount is 20, a pairing way above the average. The student's name is Purian, and she belongs to the House of Denai. Although she's from the same house as Dahlia, she's likely from a branch line in the family. The assessment results are as expected from a noble's child, and while her mana amount is slightly lacking compared to her purity, her numbers are still quite impressive. Damien wakes up from dozing off yet again, and wonders what's all the noise about. Intrigued by him, Asta explains the test, and encourages the disinterested boy to get checked. Immediately switching up, he announces that he'll go ahead and measure. The 3 boys line up, and classmates are already mumbling about the stories surrounding them. It's unfortunate that he's now known for beating Hicks up. Damien's turn comes up next, and he's asked to step forward. All he has to do is hold the device and pour his mana into it. As soon as he did as instructed, the orb flashed with a blinding light, and shocked gasps soon filled the room. They couldn't believe that they were seeing a monster right in front of them. His purity was 9 out of 10, with a mana amount of 67 over 100. Others think the tool is broken, which is usually how commoners react when faced with a real genius. To them, a level far beyond what common sense can grasp appears as a brilliant and towering wall. Honestly, even Asta didn't expect Damien to blow past the average so much. It's becoming dangerously clear why they used to call him the monster of the Blandor family. Had he put in effort in the troubleshooter's past life, then the fate of the continent might have changed. This time, he'll make sure that they remain a thorn in Declan's side, by raising Damien himself. The instructor is clearly flabbergasted by the readings and forces a routine spiel of a mage's worth being more than their mana. Accepting his feedback, the monstrous boy turns to Asta and asks if he's already done measuring. Everyone was dying to know the results of the commoner hanging around Damien and flattened Hicks. With that said, he stepped forward to get things over with. To avoid any extra noise, he tunes his output and aims for an average number. Adjusted and ready to go, he releases a reasonable amount into the orb, but belatedly realizes that the baseline was set much lower than he expected. If that happens, then the device is going to measure much higher than expected. The refinement level that pops up at first is a solid 10, but the indicators turn black and glitched incomprehensibly. An error alert appeared, saying the value limit was exceeded and must be reset. While everyone was confused, Damien cheered for his friend and screamed in joy. On the other hand, Asta immediately suggests a recheck due to the system error. His friend insists that there was no error of any sorts, and he wills him to shut up. The knowing smirk spread throughout his face, certain the reading was as true as it can be. After resetting the device, the instructor tells him to try again. This time, he hits the average numbers perfectly, and the classmates calm down after seeing normal numbers on his indicators. However, Damien curses it explicitly. Asta turns and asks where he learned that word, but sees his friend's demeanor completely shift. A disgusted expression covered his face as he called his own friend out for nonsense. The fraud looks away, unable to even speak freely now. Later on, in the first magic hall, Jera was looking out and deep in thought. The second hall's repairs were coming along well, but why would Kala attack Perun of all people? Fortunately, her veteran colleague can handle himself and does not need her concern. Just then, the assistant professor came into her office and delivered the report of this day's mana test. She takes a look at the files and concludes that this semester's freshmen are quite strong. Damien in particular will need supervision, as expected from the Blandor's prodigy. Her eyes grew wide in surprise as she saw Asta's file and how he retested due to an error on the first attempt. The code shows that he exceeded the set mana cap and baseline. Knowing better than most, she thinks about it deeply and decides to keep an eye on him as well. Meanwhile, Asta was scolding Damien for calling him out with curse words.